Hey y'all, Enso here with Knox Knife Mods. It's good to be back. It has been a minute. It's been a minute, good gosh. Wolfman Walsh has kept the ship afloat as usual. Big thank you to him for that. But today we're gonna do something with a newish knife. This is a Pro-Tech Strider SNG operator. It's one that I've really wanted for a long time, and I finally picked one up this year. So we're going to dive into this. I'll talk a little bit about it, tell you just some details about it, kind of a mini review and also a disassembly. So without further ado, let's roll that intro and get into it. All right, y'all, so the Pro-Tech Strider SNG, this is one of my all-time favorite knives as a pattern. I really love the way that Pro-Tech builds this knife. It's immaculately made. It's just a really awesome knife. It's a knife so nice, I've bought it twice. This is my first Pro-Tech Strider SNG. This is the G9 edition, one of, oh, hang on, let's see. Number 36 of 50, there we go. This one's quite old. I think it's like 6 years old. But I did do a mod on it. I Duracoated the aluminum scales. I picked this one out because it's so old that it used to have a safety switch on it, which they don't do at all anymore. I took the safety switch out because it was driving me nuts. The scales are, as you can see, the textured aluminum. I really like the texture. It's very grippy, but it's not aggressive. I went ahead and Duracoated it in this Coyote Tan or Black Hawk. Yeah, it was Black Hawk Tan is what it was. The blade is the original finish, but yeah, the handle scales were originally black. They are now Black Hawk Tan. Look quite a bit like this knife actually, except with the textured scales. So what's different between these two? The big thing is the action is nuts. The action on this is quite good, but I found that with this one, the pivot has to be positioned like perfectly for the action to perform well, and it is very tedious. And then the other problem is that it keeps kind of loosening itself up, and the blade play comes back, and then I have to retighten it, and I have to just sit there and, you know, really worry over it before it's just right. And that's one of those things. Blade play is something that I can't stand, so I'll sit there and mess with it till I get it right. In order to alleviate that problem, I'm going to give it the treatment that I gave this one, which is to fully disassemble it, oil it up, and get back to business. So I love this series. As I said, Pro-Tech really does incredible work on these. The fit and finish is unbelievable. It's basically every surface feels really tightly fit. The tolerances are super tight. It is flush everywhere. It's very comfortable. One thing that struck me with this one, this being my first smooth aluminum model, this is so comfortable. I cannot overstate how comfortable it is. As you can see, the edges are all rounded, and it just sort of molds into your hand. It feels so good. Now, the SNG handle is a handle that has always worked for me. May not work for you the same, but for me, it has always been great. Choking up, which is a really nice position if you're wanting to, you know, kind of focus up on what you're doing. But if you need reach, this swell in the back just fits right into this groove in my palm right here. And there you go. You got added reach if you need to kind of hack at something, you know, whether it's a big old chunk of wood or whatever. It's really great for that. As you can see, it's a button lock, and it's an out the side auto. So really satisfying action right out of the gate there. How do we have play here? No, we don't have play right now. Interesting. The action's super good right now. But again, this is not typically the case. Usually it's too tight or it's too loose. So we want to alleviate that problem. The clips come, as I understand it, these clips actually come straight from Strider, so that's really cool. Pretty sure they're titanium. I don't have a magnet on hand to check it, but I've always heard that they are titanium clips directly from Strider. But this version, of course, is completely murdered out. I think it looks really good. You have a tritium tube here in the push button to deploy the blade. So at nighttime, that's constantly got kind of a faint glow to it. It looks really good. The reason that I picked this up is because I had thought these had become unobtainium. These came out, I want to say like 2 years ago or maybe 3 years ago, and they were very popular. And Pro-Tech does these operator runs on several models. I think they've done the TR5 in an operator. Yeah, they've done it on a few models, and they're usually very popular, but the Strider SNG model sold out very fast. And I always regretted not getting one, because I'm at the point where I've decided if I want an SNG, it's going to be a Pro-Tech, because I know I can count on the quality and the attention to detail from Pro-Tech. It's always going to be great. Warranty service from Pro-Tech is going to be definitely better than Strider. At this point, it's mixed Strider customs, but it's definitely going to be better than MSC. There's really not any competition there. On top of that, I don't know what your feelings about mixed Strider are. I'm not a fan of him personally, but he does design a mean knife. I mean, the design is really great. So kind of knowing that I'm supporting Pro-Tech in purchasing this, namely them, that's another reason I like these models. So yeah, just a lot of good here. A new version of one of Strider's patterns that came out through Pro-Tech this year was the PT Plus. These were available in Magna Cut in some really cool smooth aluminum colorways. One of them was just an all gray. It looked really nice, but the reason I decided to go with this instead is because those new Magna Cut PT Pluses, which are slightly scaled down from the SNG, removed the stop bar, which to me is crazy. Like, that is an iconic part of the design. This stop bar here, I've always loved it. I think stop bars that are mounted on the blade and then align with the handle, I think it's a genius idea, because it also benefits with side-to-side play. It reduces the occurrence of side-to-side play. You have these two bars extending out, making contact with the handle, and then it just makes sense. So I was kind of surprised to see that they got rid of it, and instead this dip in the handle here was removed. You had a kind of an angle here. It didn't look terrible, but it just, to me, it removed another sort of, for one thing, we already don't have the hole that the SNG or SMF has here. And then they removed yet another sort of identity kind of part of an iconic part of the design. So I was so stoked to find this operator, which, as I said, these are really hard to find. And stick to the end of the video, and I will tell you where you can find these. But you gotta get to the end of the video first. So I'm gonna hold on to you here. So let's get into it. We're gonna need a T10, first of all. I got a T8 on there right now. And I'm gonna get a little sip of bourbon real quick, or rye, I should say. This is Rittenhouse rye here, which the bottle's starting to get a little bit low. Great, affordable rye. Oh, and by the way, blade steel is 154 cm, which Pro-Tech typically nails. I've never sat and really tested their heat treat or anything, but my cutting experience with my first SNG has been stellar. Oh yeah, it's delicious. Coming in about 27 bucks. Really great budget rye, and some of y'all know that the budget world is where I tend to live when it comes to bourbons. All right, let's get in here. By the way, this is a hex head pivot, as you can see, but I find that a T10 actually fits in there with no issues. So if you're dead set on using your Torx bits, T10 will work perfectly. No issues there. I suppose too, initially I was confused why Pro-Tech insisted on using an Allen head, but now I have a better idea of it. Let's slowly open this too. You need to kind of open that so that spring doesn't fire on you. These should also be T10. Yeah, these are also T10 screws. I'm gonna gently push on these and just make sure there's no Loctite. Yeah, they're just slow to move. All right. So working on an auto like this, you do need to be comfortable with the idea, because it is a different beast. On top of that, the reason I decided to work on my autos by myself is because shipping an auto is illegal unless you are a member of the military or unless you're a knife dealer, an authorized dealer. Which again, I got this from an authorized dealer, so I could just go through them. I'm sure they'd be happy to help me. But typically my outlook is if I can fix a problem myself, I would prefer to do that. So that's what we're doing. I've worked on my other SNG several times, and I'm very comfortable with it now, and I understand the mechanisms. There are some things that can be quite fickle, and we'll get into that. So as I said, these are all T10s all around. Not complicated to get the screws out here. There is some kind of red Loctite, but it's not the kind that that locks, you know, like permanently, so that's good. Taking these scales apart though is kind of, because Pro-Tech's tolerances are so good that it's actually kind of a beast to get these apart. Right now that button's not wanting to come out. Let's just kind of push it, and there we go, beautiful. So there you go, guys. That is the inner workings of the Pro-Tech SNG. As you can see, there's no washers or anything. The blade just contacts the pivot areas, and that's where we're going to be putting some oil. You want to be careful when getting the blade out, because this button and its spring will just shoot off. So gently, gently, gently kind of work that out. It can, again, the button is the most fickle part of this entire assembly. So let's see if I can manage to kind of wiggle it. There we go, we got it out. Right here is the coil spring. Now this spring is what gives the action, the deployment action to the blade, of course. Here is our, whoop, there it goes, see, there's our button. And now I need to find the spring. Where did our spring go? Looks like I gotta go on a hunt. All right, and here is our spring, just a simple spring there. So let's go ahead and we're gonna wipe this surface down. This looks like rim oil or something like that. All right, so let's get these scales wiped down real quick. I'm just using a little wet wipe type thing here. I really want to experience a fully manual Pro-Tech and not an auto, because their fit and finish and quality is just, it's just so very good that I got to imagine that, you know, one of their button lock manuals, like on bearings, are probably a joy to use. One of these days, that is something that I'm going to do. I really like the Malibu a lot. There's also the Mordax, but I'm less of a fan of Ferrum Forge, who designed that knife. I like the Malibu a bit more. All right, so got that scale ready. Got this one dried up here. I just love the look of this knife. One person that reviewed this knife who really gets into why it is so great and actually does a comparison against a Strider SNG is Bearded Gear, I believe it was. So yeah, check out both his video, his review of the Pro-Tech SNG operator, as well as his kind of one-on-one battle against the Strider SNG and why he prefers the operator. So let's get some oil on the subject here. I'm just using mineral oil because I like to use food-safe oils. I do cut a lot of food, and yeah, I don't know, it's just nice to not have to worry too much about it. All right, so there's a little raised section you'll see here that's kind of milled out. I'm just going to kind of rub some oil around there. I do tend to use too much oil, so you know, if you want to point that out, you're more than welcome to. Let's see, a little bit here. And I'm going to dry some of that off. All right. Let's rub that in there a bit. Get off some of that excess. Mineral oil too is quite viscous, so it tends to, in my experience at least, I don't know chemically, I couldn't say from a chemical standpoint, but in my experience it tends to last a good long while. All right, so what we're going to do is, you see this hole here in the pivot, we're going to take this little point here on the spring and pop that right in there. Let's see, just got to kind of work it in there if we can get it there. Come on now. There we go, perfect. And then what we're going to need to do, we're going to need to take this tab and roll it down. It's not hard to do. It's going to go into this gap here on the scale. But at the same time, it's kind of the tricky part. At the same time, we're going to have to mount the button with its spring in there as well. Don't worry about the orientation of the tritium tube there, because you can actually adjust the orientation of the button after the knife is assembled. Okay, so let's see if I can do this. Let's get the spring in place there first. Excuse me, guys. I'm kind of getting over a bit of a cold here. Let me see if I can use my fingernail. I don't think that's going to work. I'll have to use a tool of some kind. Probably try to use this one. Let me wipe that off. And then I'm definitely going to be Loctiting the pivot after it's in place. Okay, so that's oriented. Now let's see if I can guide the tab. I don't know how well you guys can see this. Apologies if it's not super clear. Oh, okay. Nope, that missed. All right. Let's see here. Actually, before I continue, just a dab of oil here. Oh, that's perfect. Just a bit. A little bit. Okay. All right, so let's get this lined up again. Bring this a little bit further up here. I may need to take the pocket clip off because it raises up the scale there. All right, so is that in place? It's almost there, and that's sliding out. All right, that's in. Let's drop this spring in. Let's attempt to get that button in there without messing the whole thing up. Come on, spring. Sit up the right way. There we go. Okay, that's seated. Great. Everything's in place. Awesome. Perfect. So that's the way to do it then. Let's remember that for the future. Put the blade in place first. Get your spring into the gap there. And then kind of wiggle the blade and drop your button in. All right, let's get the other handle scale on here. Hard this is going to be here to get that button in. There we go, perfect. Everything's lined up. God, this thing goes together so nicely. Get off this excess oil. All right, let's put it back together. So it's not as scary as it seems. And it's, other than dealing with that coil and button spring kind of combination, everything comes apart very well. Before I forget to mention, you can pick up the Pro-Tech Strider operator at Tennessee Cutlery. Just put them into your search engine there, look for Tennessee Cutlery. It'll come right up, and when you get to their website, search Pro-Tech operator, and the SNG should come on up. I do love the SNG pattern though. I remember the first time I saw it, I believe it was on Nick Shabazz's channel. And it was way back when you could actually get regular Striders. And it was, oh, gotta get Loctite. I typically don't worry about Loctite for body screws, but I do need it for the pivot for sure. Hang on, let me get this one more good kind of hit here. Get that Loctite moving. All right. Okay, get some Loctite on here. Obviously, you know, want to make sure you're using the blue stuff. All right, that's enough. And a little bit trickier to get this T10 positioned properly on the Allen head. There we go. Beautiful. Okay. Okay, so let's see, play, no play. And it's firing, let's loosen it up a bit. Come on out, there we go. Oh yeah. No play and it's firing like a rocket. That right there is why your Pro-Tech autos need to be lubricated. I don't know what they're using in the shop, you know, when they sell them, but or when they ship them, but it just doesn't quite work the same as doing a lubrication job yourself. So yeah, no play at all, rock solid, and the action is just snappy, snappy. So that's awesome. Here, I'm going to do this one more time just to show you all really slowly here. So if you want to adjust, excuse me, the orientation of the button, just press it down while it's deployed and just turn it, just like that. And it'll hold its position pretty well. Eventually it'll kind of get out of where it was, but it takes a while before that happens. I like mine at kind of a slant here. I think it looks kind of cool like that. But anyway, guys, this has been a little mini review, I guess. Not quite a full review, but whatever. And a disassembly on the Pro-Tech SNG operator. Awesome. Love this thing. Guys, thank you so much for joining tonight. I know it's been a minute since I showed up on here. Just a lot of family stuff going on, and I won't get into it because Lord knows I've been talking about how tough this year's been a lot, but it's just been a hard year. However, we're getting through things and everything's coming together, and been a couple family emergencies, but they all worked out. So I'm grateful for that, and I'm grateful too for the wonderful people I work for day to day, John and Kate over at Primo Cutlery, for always being willing to kind of work with me when some family emergency came up. So I really appreciate that from them. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining. This has been a fun one, and we will see y'all in the next one. Peace.